All right. I am excited to get into this one. People are always asking about, how to raise money and how much to raise. There's just like so much that you don't know about raising money. And especially, and really, unless you know someone who's done it. So I guess the first question I want to ask is, when should you raise money? Like before the company starts? Like at what point is the right time to raise money?
I mean, businesses raise money at so many different stages of the business. So I don't think there's really a specific answer for that. But the first time you raise, at least from what I learned, is that I had a much easier time raising when I was like a pre-product in the idea stage versus raising after I had data.
Oh, interesting.
And obviously, like if you have great data, it's a very different story. So maybe that was more about like how well we had done. But definitely as a first time founder, I found that like selling the dream was so much easier.
Yes.
Than selling the data. And especially because my first round, my pre-seed round was only £300,000. So not massive. And I didn't realize that I should have raised much more at that point to push through the traction that I was needing to prove for my next round. So you're going to raise it very many different times, but definitely don't feel like you don't have enough to raise, even if you just have an idea.
Interesting. So you're almost like selling the dream. Like, I'm not going to call it bluffing, but you're selling a dream that doesn't exist yet.
Totally. And it's a lot easier to sell a dream before like it's out there in the world and it's like not necessarily working the way you want it to work.
Or yet.
Yeah, maybe. Exactly. And also like if you don't have the money to like perpetuate that, it's going to limit how viral it looks like it is.
So would you say it's actually it's better to sell the dream than sell it like 2 years, than raise 2 years in or something?
Like when I advise people who are like, should I build a website first? Should I like get my first product up and running? And I was like, I would try first and foremost to sell your idea and get investment for that, because once it's out there, it's like, it's out there.
Got it.
And like, what do you have to lose by trying that first?
Right.
Whereas if you wait till you have something that's live, then you've missed the opportunity of just selling the dream and now you're selling traction. And I think once you have a product out in the world, investors will be like, oh, I'm going to wait and see.
Yes.
How this does. Yeah, exactly. Like you don't need me to get to a point of building the product or selling it or building the website. So
that makes sense.
My advice is definitely like, if you have an idea, build a beautiful deck and just start there. And if that doesn't work, at least you tried it. Whereas if you wait and then you can't raise based off of traction and also you didn't have any money to like get good traction, you've lost the opportunity of being able to just sell the dream.
That's so interesting, because when Bala tried to raise at one point, it was like the wrong year. It was like a bad year for raising, but it was like a huge brand that people knew, and investors were telling us no because we were past pre-seed and not quite like a Series B, and we hadn't raised before. So we were in this like weird spot, and we would have been way better off had we raised at the beginning.
Of course.
So sell the dream.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. And they were like looking at it and being like, okay, it's not like going crazy yet. Why are we going to put money in? Let's wait till it does.
Exactly. Just to set the stage, how much did you raise? I know, but let's tell the people.
To date, I raised just under $10 million.
That's insane.
That wasn't in one round. It was several different rounds. And some of them were like extreme struggles and some of them were incredibly easy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
$10 million though. Like that is a really hard number to raise, especially for a woman. How do you even get introduced to investors? Like, what if you're starting out, you really know no one? You're not like maybe even in LA or New York where you're like surrounded by founder friends to ask. Like, how do you even begin to meet people?
I mean, I actually knew nobody, to be fair. Like, I was working at Vice, so like I was probably one step removed. I was still, I would say, within a space that was like not far off from knowing people, but I started working for different events that were in the tech space for free, kind of volunteering. And I remember at one stage meeting a VC and I was asking like, what if I don't know anybody? How do I get in? Before I'd raised anything. And he was like, you just have to work a ton of these events and keep meeting people like me. And in my head, I was like, I don't have time for this.
Seems so hard too.
Yeah, and the whole concept was like you need warm intros.
Okay.
And I think that is true. Like you get so much more value from a warm intro.
Meaning like someone in common?
Exactly.
Or...
Like somebody can introduce you.
Okay.
As opposed to just like sending a cold email.
Yeah, no one.
But I also think that we have been told and we've built a ton of like structure around keeping people out. And making people feel like because they're not part of that community, like they can't get investment, they can't get in. And I kind of pushed past that a little bit. And my strategy ended up being like, I just looked on Companies House, which I don't know what the US equivalent is, but in the UK, you can see any company that exists by searching for them on Companies House. It displays their investors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So even if it's a private company, it will display like who the shareholders are.
Okay, I didn't even know about that. Okay, cool.
And I'm sure that, I mean, you can also like use Pitchfork or Crunchbase now, right? So I would essentially think of like companies that had very similar business models to what I was trying to build.
Yep.
And then I would look them up on Companies House, and I would find shareholder names. And then I would find that person on LinkedIn, and I would scrape their email address with one of those like...
How do you scrape it?
So like I had like a Chrome integration that you could just...
So
if you Google like email
cold email
scraper,
me every day. Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Basically, I'm sure it's much more advanced now.
Yeah.
This was like 10 years ago. And I would find their email addresses and I would just cold email them and be like, I found you in this way because you invested in another business that has a similar business model to mine. So you're obviously like comfortable with this business model. It was a marketplace. So I looked at Deliveroo and Uber Eats and like those kind of structures. And a lot of them wrote back. A lot of them ignored me, but a lot of them wrote back and were like, I am so impressed by this work.
And like, let's get on a call?
Yeah.
That's actually
And that's
crazy.
how I got some of my first investors.
Wow. Okay. So like what percentage, because I love that. I think the cold email is like definitely worth it because even if 2 people respond out of 100, but like what were your odds? Like if you had to remember back then, like
I would say they were still pretty low odds.
Okay.
But
so it's a numbers game.
It's definitely a numbers game if you're like cold emailing people. Yeah. I think raising in general is a numbers game, to be honest. Like for me, at least it was. I think that I know many people who, you know, had incredible odds and they were second-time founders, or maybe they were white men or whatever. Their ideas were better than mine. I don't know. There's a ton of things that go into it. But I would say every time I did a round, it's never that I spoke to 10 people and had like 5 commit.
Yeah.
It was, I had like 150 plus conversations.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How did you have the time for all of that?
It just becomes a necessity.
Full-time
job. Oh yeah. Like I was like 6 months out of the business, like out of the day-to-day of the business, because not one meeting. Right.
No, that's what always
like
scared me about raising.
Meetings.
I'm like, I don't have time for that.
No, it's honestly, it's so time consuming. It becomes so boring. I remember like there were stages where you're on autopilot with what you say and your presentations, right? And when someone like finally like cuts you off to ask a question, I was like, whoa, like you tell the same jokes.
Oh my gosh.
It's a pretty extreme sport.
I also feel like there was, because, you know, whenever we did try to raise, we did have several calls, and it's like you are on a Zoom and you have to control the energy. You have to bring so much energy, so much excitement, because if they're not excited about your idea, like you have to get them excited.
Tiring.
And they're taking these calls all day long.
Honestly, by the end of the day, I was like, I don't want to speak to my boyfriend. Like, I don't want to speak to my friends. Like, you've just talked so much.
Do you have any tips on like keeping that energy? Because that is exhausting, but I know you have to keep them excited and passionate. So like, do you have any tips on how would you keep that energy going on a Zoom? Because they need to feel excited about it.
I mean, I did raise a lot of my rounds in person.
Okay.
I did start to raise, like, I think the last round I raised was post-COVID, and it was really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Like and you can tell like people don't join on video.
Yeah.
You can tell that they're like texting or like distracted, and you just completely lose momentum and you feel like you're like talking into thin air. And those calls, like you get off them and you're like, I'm not even going to bother following up. Like, you know how they went. It's so much harder on Zoom calls. I would say that like, especially now, if you can get back out there and get in person with people. And that's what I would generally do is I would try to like I would like email everybody up front. I think that was like my biggest learning is like, you can't allow like big periods of time to happen between like one meeting and another, not even for the same person. So like you want to build momentum so that you're speaking to everybody almost at the same time, back to back. So you get yeses along the way and you can follow up really fast and be like, okay, this person's in. And you're constantly like emailing the people who haven't said yes yet to show them that stuff is happening and stuff is moving. Whereas if I like spoke to an investor like 2 weeks apart, the one I spoke to in the beginning would have not heard from me for 2 weeks, if not longer, before I got a yes. And momentum kind of dissipates.
They're not excited anymore.
Exactly. And I do find like a lot of them are followers.
Yes.
So you have to like be super strategic around how you raise. Even there's definitely a flow to it and like a management process to it.
Okay. I have a few questions here. So I want to know, I've heard something about basically the excitement thing in the flow, but it's like you almost want to like not lie, but like fib, like, hey, we're closing next week, even if nobody's interested. Like, tell me about that bluff, because I know it's a thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough
like for closing the round
bluff.
Okay.
Like you don't want to say someone said yes.
No, yeah, you don't want to lie.
Yeah, because if it's not true and they're like, well, we're out, you're kind of like, like, or these timings don't work. I do think the biggest thing that I learned that I did differently from like, say, my first raise to maybe my third raise is I was so strategic. I had like a full list of everybody I was going to speak to, say that's like 150 funds.
Yep.
And then I would give them like a 3-day period of when that call needed to happen 2 weeks out. Okay. So like, I'm going to start raising on this date in 2 weeks and I intend to close by this date.
Right. And you were making it up to.
I mean, I wasn't bluffing. I was saying like, this is when I'm like going out to the market to start raising, but it meant like they had time to have their schedules free. And then I just like booked literally back to back. And then I kept my meetings with them, initial meetings really short.
Okay.
Half an hour, sometimes 20 minutes. And I was like, I have another meeting. I've got to go. So you're constantly showing them that you're out there.
Yeah.
And then like, because everything was blocked into such a small period of time, you could then do the second round the following week and the third round the following week.
Okay.
And so you started to get yeses or nos or interests along the way. And you kind of could keep everyone you were speaking to updated on this journey. So you're not necessarily, I wouldn't like lie, but like I would constantly email them being like, okay, I'm now in San Francisco. I'm now in New York.
So
I'm now in London, and they are all on like a WhatsApp group together, like all the big funds.
They all know.
They're all fucking talking.
It's like dating. It's like, I mean, I hate this, but you have to like play hard to get. And it's like, that's so annoying.
Yeah.
Wow. So
I know.
Nobody's interested, but
I always thought like, oh, I have a good idea. Like that's enough. And so much of it is strategy.
Okay. Interesting. So I want to talk about the deck because you alluded to like building a pretty deck. I've seen the decks you've built. They're great. How do you like, especially like, let's say I'm not a designer.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm not even like a strategist or a designer. I just have a really good product idea. I know it's great. Like, how do you even go about building that deck? Are there resources you can shout out? Like, give us what's like also needs to be in the deck?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many tools out there now to build decks super easily. Like obviously Canva is one of them, even though I don't know how to use Canva.
I use Canva 'cause I'm
I do everything in Keynote. But I do think like my first deck was something like 60 pages and it needs to be like 12. And it's just part of the process, right? Like you are just getting so like obsessed with your idea and you're dumping like all of this information onto slides about like why your idea is so good. And eventually like it gets cut back. And as you share it with more and more people, they're like, I don't need to read about the entire industry. Like it's great you're interested, but like this is the one line.
Yes.
And so it's definitely a process and an important process, not just to show investors that you have a viable idea in 10 slides, but it was a super important process for me to learn about what the opportunity was and who my competitors were. Like it really forces you into a position of kind of building a business plan, which I probably would have never done if I didn't have this necessity. We didn't do that.
So
yeah, exactly. And it just meant that I like knew my industry and I knew everything super, super well when I was ultimately questioned for it.
Okay.
In terms of designing it, I mean, yeah, I think like don't worry about that until the very, very last stage. And the structure of it, you can find, so Y Combinator, they give a lot of free tools around
Okay.
like how much to give to a co-founder.
I've never used Y Combinator. That sounds interesting. Okay.
It's so good. Like they'll have Paul Graham, who writes most of the articles, will have like a write-up on like how to split equity or how to like what's required in a deck.
Okay.
Or they even have a safe in there, which is like a founder-friendly mechanism to raising money.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, it's a really, really good resource.
I'm going to look that up. Okay. Also, I know I wanted to ask you about safes versus like Series A. Like give us, for someone who really has no idea what a safe is or a pre-seed or Series A, like Series B even, like can you give us a quick run through of that?
Yeah. So the different series are how investors define how advanced your business is in terms of the traction it's doing.
Okay.
So pre-seed tends to be, I have an idea. I have very little around this idea. I maybe like know who I want to hire, or I have a co-founder and a prototype, maybe no prototype. Like it could just be your deck.
Mm-hmm.
And what you need is like someone to take a risk on helping you take that to MVP or helping you understand if there's any like viability in this. So you normally have the lowest valuation and you sell the most of your business at that stage, but it's also the highest risk
for the investor.
For the investor. And different funds some funds do cross multiple series, but different funds tend to pick a stage that they invest in.
Yes.
And that's because they do smaller tickets versus bigger tickets. Like you couldn't invest $100,000 in a business if you were like a Series B fund. Yeah. So yeah, pre-seed is like pre-product. Seed is like, I have a product and some very early traction. And Series A is like, we've figured out what works, what mechanisms, and now we need like a bigger investment to push into those channels.
Yes.
Essentially.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and then building around that is you normally, if you say I'm raising like a $1 million round, for example, you normally will need one lead, and that will be one fund or sometimes like one angel to say, okay, I'm going to be the lead, and they invest the biggest amount.
Okay. And that just means they have the most conviction about the idea.
Exactly. It tends to be a fund.
Is it really just they invest the most amount, or is there something else about being a lead?
They also manage the process with the shareholder agreements. Okay. So they are the ones that, instead of having like 10 investors all get super involved in the scripting of the shareholder agreements, they kind of manage the structure of it. Okay. And then the others just sign along with it.
Okay. Easy. Because the lawyer fees. Oof. Okay.
Yeah. And they like, it's just their lawyer fees and then your own lawyer fees.
Okay.
And then with that, they kind of decide, they tend to have special terms, whether it's like a liquidation preference or things like that. The lead will have.
Okay. Any tips? I mean, I know you're not a lawyer, but like any tips on something that you should put in the shareholder agreement?
Do not take this as legal advice.
Yeah. But like, is there anything that you would like?
Yeah, I would say, looking back, especially now that I've exited my business, and like when I first did it, I was just like so excited. My first round was like 2 really big angels. I didn't have any funds in it, and I didn't know anything about the legal implications. I was just like worry about what happens when I sell it, Like that was so far from my mind. And I was also like, oh my God, these billionaires want to be my business partner. And my lawyer kept saying, no, they don't. Like they don't want to be your business partner. They want to make money
from you.
Yeah, they were like, and one of them like really wanted to do a joint venture, like didn't want to be a shareholder. And he was like, my lawyer, I was so lucky, just understood, what was going on. Yes. And I was so naive. But I definitely had some shitty terms that got carried all the way through to exit. And one of them was I had some really intense liquidation preferences. I'm not going to explain what a liquidation preference is, but like Google it. Yeah. Definitely look out for that. Yeah. Most funds, I think, ask for one. And then the other thing that I wasn't aware of in the early stage is founder shares. So there's different share classes. Like one class might have a liquidation preference. One might have like special dilution protections, and founder shares tend to have dilution protections. So another thing, if anyone is ever getting to that stage, their first shareholder agreements, I would say those are the 2 things to call out.
So you want to make sure you have enough founder shares?
That they're at least like have an open discussion if they're open to making your shares founder shares or being a unique class as opposed to ordinary. And then just understand if they're putting a liquidation preference in there, what that means for you.
Wow. Very good tips. I feel like that's just something like when you're out there raising, you would never think of some.
Well,
of
I just like
unless you have a good lawyer.
I didn't even know what they meant.
Yeah, of course. These terms you don't know when you're starting business.
And even my lawyer like never brought up founder shares, but he also was like, yeah, liquidation preferences are normal.
Right.
But that was it.
Yeah.
Like he didn't really explain to me like what it meant.
Okay. That's very interesting. So how do you know how much to raise? Especially you're coming out of green, it sounds like, at the very beginning, not at the ultimate when you raised 10 million, but like at the first 300,000, how did you know that was your number?
I mean, I was like a Vice. I built budgets all the time, more from like a content production perspective. So I was used to building budgets, but I did the same thing. Like I built like I think it was a list of like 300 items. Like these are all the things I have to do to launch.
Okay.
Like user experience. This is what their day rate is. Build the website, domain name. Like I even had like Google Workspace on there for like $7 a month. I think it's like 14 now. But you know, like I just like had built a massive list. And if there was a cost associated with it, I just put the cost next to it.
Okay.
And then I put months at the top and dragged it out. And I was like, okay, this is how much money I need to get live. And then have some time to like build traction afterwards.
So how many months runway would you give any brand? Like, what would you say? Like 3 months runway? That's what I would say, but maybe you would say longer.
I would definitely say 18 months.
18 months runway?
If you can get it, yeah. I think
but that's really hard at the beginning.
I think I didn't raise enough, but like 3 months runway was never enough if you know you're going to have to raise again, because that would essentially mean you would have to start raising immediately.
Okay.
Because but from like first conversation to actual closed documents, money in the bank, sometimes took me 6 months.
Right. So you need to have, the foresight
to have
that money.
So like you need to have enough time to like learn how to spend it.
Okay.
Figure out what's working. Then use that data to put into your new story.
Okay.
And then use that to go raise on and still have a protection of 6 months to close.
What's the most percentage you would I mean, I'm not even asking for like advice for the crowd. I'm just genuinely curious. Like what, if you were starting another company right now, like how much and you needed to raise, let's say you need to raise a lot. Yeah. What is the most you would give away?
I think that the rule of thumb, if a fund is involved, is they tend to like to own 20%.
Okay.
So
you know you're giving away 20 at least.
I mean, I think it also depends. It depends on your experience. Like, have you done this before? Are you a second-time founder? Like, do you have proof behind you? You can probably get away with 10, 15. Yeah. Like, there's exceptions to every rule. Most funds, I think, have mandates over how much they need to own from their investment. Yeah. Just so that they have a certain amount of control.
They need skin in the game too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, especially, I think one of the biggest questions I get asked to this day is like, how do you value your business before it's not worth anything? And I think figure out how much you need to raise to get to a point where you'll feel comfortable going back into the market. So you have enough runway to like test and then go raise again. And then whatever that amount is, assume that if you had to sell 20% of your business for that amount, what valuation would that be?
Okay, yeah. Valuation is it's so tricky.
I mean, in the beginning, it's like a complete finger in the air.
I mean, for real. Even when we went on Shark Tank, we gave away 30% of the company.
That's
like, we'll get into that for like not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like looking back, it was a crazy deal, but that's Shark Tank. It's a
Shark
different
Tank
thing.
limitation. Like you can't go on there and be like, oh, I'm raising 100,000 with a like 40 million valuation.
Exactly. They get pissed. So was actually my next question. So basically, if you go on Shark Tank, you have to undervalue the company. So if you're just raising regularly, would you undervalue or overvalue your company?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on the stage.
It depends on the stage.
It depends on the stage. Like if you have traction, like your value is based off of something.
Yeah.
If you have no traction, that's also why a safe is like really valuable in the beginning, is you don't need to decide on a valuation.
That's great.
Like you're basically saying, okay, I'm agreeing to a cap and there's going to be a discount for you for taking the risk.
Okay.
And maybe there's not always a discount, but
I think there is a discount. Yeah. Because we had a safe.
Yeah. I think sometimes. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's always, but you're not like committing to a valuation. And you also don't need to build around a lead.
Okay.
So it's just like early stages. It's a really easy way to be like, okay, I'm just going into the market and I'm just going to start gathering people based off of the amount that I need and closing them on their own. Like,
Okay.
we don't need a shareholder agreement. We don't need all of those lawyers, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's so intimidating.
yeah.
All the lawyers and all the
It's just
terminology.
It's just so expensive.
Yeah, really expensive and racks up very quickly.
Yeah.
One thing I meant to cover on earlier, when you're out there pitching and you're having all of these meetings, like I cannot handle, now I can, but I can't handle the rejection of it all. Like not personally, but business wise, like if somebody doesn't think it's a good idea or big enough or whatever, like it personally offends me. Now I'm better about it. How do you handle the rejection of it all?
I think that I'm probably driven by proving people wrong anyway.
Yes,
I think that is generally, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Great
but,
thing.
Yeah, I definitely use the nose as fire.
Wow. Okay. I like that.
I want to I write down names and then I burn the piece of paper. No, not really. But
do a whole ritual. Okay.
Yeah. You're going to regret this. That's my mentality over it.
I think that's the best.
But then honestly, I don't remember any of those.
Play like a Lizzo song and be like, no, you are going to wish you would. Okay. So last question, and then I want to get to the hot takes, but basically, when a round closes, start to finish, like let's say it said took 6 months and sign on the dotted line, like when do you get the money?
As soon as you sign, they just start.
So you get money instantly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not instant at all because they might have committed that money 4 months prior.
So you might have spent it or
committed it as in verbally committed it. Hopefully you haven't spent it until it hits the bank.
Yeah.
Though I definitely spend money before it's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, once everything's closed from a shareholder agreement perspective and it hits the bank.
Actually, I thought of one more question. I really want to know if investors and VC, because they pitch themselves that they're really going to help you strategically, like partnerships, like sell the company. Are they actually helpful besides the check?
Yes and no. If you have strategic angels, I've definitely relied on them at different stages in the business to advise me. Mm-hmm. And that's been super beneficial. Most of my funds, not really.
Okay. That's kind of what I've heard.
Yeah.
Sorry, no offense, funds.
But it depends as well. I definitely raised money at stages where I was desperate. I had somebody commit $1 million in lead and then backed out when COVID happened.
Oh my God.
So then I went back to the market with a lot of desperation because our timeline had completely changed.
Yes.
And so I've taken money over value.
Yeah.
But they ended up being great investors in the fact that they kind of just I'm going to do my thing.
It's you don't want to be desperate because they can really.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be desperate.
But yes, let you do your thing is the best thing. That's why I do like the Shark Tank people, because it's I have peers like you having to go into boardrooms and actually do all of these reports, and it's almost like another boss.
Yeah.
But then it's
oh yeah,
you want somebody to not do that.
I had to do so much reporting.
Yeah. I can't add that to my to-do list. So anyway, it's a toss up whether that's for you or not. But let's get to the hot takes.
Let's do it.
Okay. First question. Is raising VC money actually as much of a success as people make it out to be?
I don't think so. It's obviously very hard. But I think you see more and more companies these days raise incredibly inflated amounts of money for inflated valuations. And a ton of the time, it's not based on the merit that I think is deserved. I hate it when somebody walks into a room and when they talk about their business, they're like, this is how much I've raised.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, does your business work?
Oh, that's true. Is it
think
profitable?
About how many businesses have raised $300 million and then fail and don't pay
that's
any
true.
of their
But it is
suppliers.
hard to raise money. So I do think kudos to that. That's why I'm you raised $10 million. It's crazy.
Totally. It takes work everything does, but bootstrapping a business and making it successful is much harder.
That is hard. We'll talk about that in a whole other episode. Does raising money make you lazy?
Yeah, I think it didn't make me lazy. It made me stupid.
Why?
I just didn't watch the dollars in the same way.
Yeah.
You get into a mindset of you need to spend to grow.
Right.
And I don't think you spend as intelligently. The amount of runway I had on my first $300K versus when I raised a $2.5 million seed round, I probably spent them in the same amount of time.
Wow. Yeah, that's why I like bootstrapping, because you always have to worry about
you
the
just
dollar.
Look at every single dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What matters more, the idea or the story?
The story.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Like the branding, the marketing, the story. Okay. What tool brought you the most value as a founder fundraising?
There's a fund called NFX,
Mhm.
and I can't remember the exact name of the tool, but if you go to nfx.com, they've built an integration that links with your LinkedIn. And you put like the stage that you're raising at, like how much money you want to raise and the category, and it links to your LinkedIn, and it will give you all of the funds that are investing in those criteria, and it will find people who you are like one or two people removed from to get you access to partners at those funds.
I love that.
It's genius.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I love this episode. I feel like there's so many insightful actual tools for people to go raise money. So thank you.
Thank you.